Welcome to our Mind Connect panel on IBA and joint ventures here at the NOMS stage. Unfortunately, our moderator, Roy Slack, couldn't be with us today due to a family emergency. As a director of Mind Connect, I've been involved and have helped organize a large conference in its third year. The PEP conference in Sudbury was designed to ignite industry-wide discussion and engagement across all industries. Our new moderator, please welcome Eddie Lamontagne. Eddie has 40 years experience in the mining industry in a number of different capacities and is well positioned to guide our panel today. Please welcome Eddie Lamontagne.
Okay, I'm gonna have to lower the mic. Okay, where's Dave Burdette? Dave, can you hear me? Can't find him. Okay, so my name is Eddie Lamontagne. We're going to go through a few of the panelists, and at the end, if we have time, we'll have questions. First, I'd like to put my glasses on.
Just make it up.
Now, can you hear me good? Everybody? Okay. So first, we want to acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wanda people. That was pretty good, Cece?
That was great.
People, and now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with Mississauga of the Credit. So first, I'd like to introduce the panel. On my far right is Chief Jason Gauthier. Chief Gauthier is from the Anishinaabe Cree First Nation Chief. Eric Harakangas is Executive Vice President of Growth and Acquisition for Cementation Canada, Inc. Next is Brad Gregoroni, President of Norpro. And of course, to my close right is Stacy Kress, Mining Project Manager of Wabitec Business Development Corporation. So of course I couldn't, thank you. Of course I couldn't fill Roy Slack's shoes. He's a bit taller and more into it, but I'll do my best to represent, of course, Mind Connect. I'm sure everybody's heard of Mind Connect by now. Yes. Sounds good, right? Thanks for Mind Connect. First, we're going to start with why we're doing this. Mind Connect has many members, and we try and understand what's a joint venture, what's an IBA. So we started that a couple of weeks ago to involve our members, and at the same time, we figure we elevate it to future member that we're going to have here today. They're going to be signed up hopefully by the end of the day. Chief Gauthier, first we're going to start talk about IBAs. And in your own word, tell us more about it.
We don't really call them IBAs anymore. We have several different names for them. We have, it turns out almost to be the same thing. But when we talked about signing IBAs, our community was talked more about calling it community benefits agreement or socioeconomic participation agreements or participation agreements. They've grown over the years, and we've learned a lot of lessons in the IBAs. It took us a very long time to negotiate IBAs with the companies within our territory, but we were successful in getting our IBAs signed. But I did want to mention that our IBAs are quite unique. Unique in the way that we sent our IBAs out for ratification. So we had a copy of the IBAs that we have in front of our community members, looking them over to make sure that they were properly negotiated and that they had we had a buy-in from our community. I know that it made the companies quite nervous because they weren't really sure whether or not they were going to be approved after years and years of negotiations. But we were successful in getting them ratified, and I believe that including your community in decisions that you make was an extremely important part of getting those IBAs completed.
Thank you. Eric?
Yes, thanks, Eddie. Obviously, it's a little bit different for us as a service provider to really understand the IPAs and for us, it's been a learning lesson probably since about 2005. Obviously, you have to understand that these IPAs are confidential between the mine owner and the community, but as a service provider, it's really important that we do understand and that we align ourselves with these agreements. And we work closely with, obviously, the community, chief and council, and try and support any aspects of those IPAs. But I just wanted to maybe give a little bit of, my understanding 101 of IPAs, and really everybody has to understand that they are probably the most significant part of resource development projects. That's first and foremost. Obviously, we see it out there. Every mining project has a community partner. And secondly, understanding that these communities have gained these lands through treaty rights, and now as resource development companies come in and they want access to those lands to build these projects. So you have to respect that, and you have to recognize that. And secondly, probably the most important thing is that both partners, both the community and the mine owners, the resource developers, are looking for support. They look to each other for support. The mine owner, the resource developer, looks to the community for support of the project, and in return, the community looks to the developer for support for the community. And I think that's really, really important. It's a basic fundamental of these IPAs, and you have to really understand that. And I think you really have to understand that we talk about, as Jason said here, Chief said, that there's many different names for these, but really it's that impact. What is the impact of the project, of the mine development to the community? Obviously, it affects plants and animals. It affects the population. There's a population increase, obviously, with many hundreds, thousands of jobs sometimes, depending on the size of the project. It affects their traditional economies. So you really have to understand that. But the bottom line is that through these IPAs, there's one fundamental approach, and that's really, we must respect and acknowledge the fact that they want to build capacity in the community, and we have to work with them.
Thank you, Eric.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Eric. Thank you. As we're a service provider as well, and it's understanding, following the rules, and understanding who our partners are, and really relationship building. And yeah, exactly what you touched on.
Thank you. Stacy?
For sure. I really enjoy being on a panel with Chief Gauthier, because when he says something, I'm like, yeah, for sure. And I just really like to add what he talks about, for sure. And he says some things that I entirely agree with, as well as the other gentleman, that the IBA, or whatever you're calling it, collaboration agreement, relationship development, all that sort of thing, that's what primarily it's about. It's about that partnership. It's about moving forward in good faith, economic development opportunities, and recognizing that Chief Gauthier in the past has said that it takes years to negotiate these, and with that time, it's the idea is to develop good relationships and to go into it in a partnership, right? You can call them of course, they identify the relationships and the commitments, and that's exactly what they are. They're commitments. They're commitments of that partnership, of that collaborative agreement, and they can be the basis of those good relationships. But they're very key, and they are significant, obviously, to business development. But they also need to, mining suppliers need to understand that the commitments that are identified in the IBA agreements, even though they're made with the mining project, that they still primarily apply to the good nature of business with mining suppliers too. So they need to be aware of what some of those commitments are that the larger companies are making, because they're making these relationships with the Indigenous communities, and in good faith, of course, of employment opportunities. But it's a relationship, and I think those IBA agreements do, the spirit of them apply to business development and hiring practices, and the impacts that even delivering goods to a mine site have, and the responsibility that goes along with that.
Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. I guess stuff I forgot as it went along here. I wanted to mention that, and it was touched on a little bit about the relationships that are built between the two parties in an IBA agreement. I was reminded by the relationship. The mayor, Timmins, is here. I just wanted to do a shout out, and I wanted to thank him for the relationship we just created between our tribal council and the city of Timmins moving forward in collaboration. And it reminds me that how important those relationships are. It's easy to have an agreement and it's easy to sign something, but put it into action and to work together as two parties to move both forward. I think that was really the spirit of putting those agreements together. And I think, I think that was the intent from the very beginning and from both sides. I think that an agreement, I always say, in negotiating an agreement, it's not completed when both sides are equally unhappy with the agreement, right? Knowing that one person really hasn't got away with anything and the other is walking away upset or thinking that they're happy about how well they've done in this agreement. So I think that, in respect to the IBA with the mining company, I think what was also detailed was the importance of each part of that IBA. There's sections to the IBA, and they are. It's very important that we have somebody to go through those sections to make sure that they're actually being implemented. I think that's really the most important part of getting an IBA is making sure that the company is following that IBA and that the First Nations are also following that IBA. We've always said that it's a living document that things can be changed if the two parties felt that that was going to be advantageous for both of them, that there was a give and take. But I think that we've been more successful in changing our IBA than actually creating it. So it's now a more solid agreement as the months and years go by. Miguel, thanks for that.
I would just add what Jason said. Me and Jason are going to go on the road. We're going to take our show on the road, and we're going to be talking. But one aspect of it, I think we need to also remember about IBAs is that there's a social, cultural aspect of it as well. A lot of it is business development. A lot of it is employment and training. Obviously, environment is very key about it, but there's also a social, cultural, typically components of it that needs to also be remembered and considered.
Thank you. Chief Gauthier, can you talk to us about the joint ventures?
So joint ventures, when I mentioned earlier about the implementation of the IBA, with the companies that we work with and companies beyond just the ones that we have IBAs, what happens is we built sort of a business structure within our IBA and within our community. We reach out to different community or different companies in which we can leverage the IBA to have the companies work in the mining sector or in the forestry sector or wherever else we have these agreements. So it's a really good opportunity for companies to get involved with the First Nations to say, okay, well, how do we get to a competitive advantage for contracting for any resource company? Well, I mean, it's really been a wave over the last 10, 15 years that Aboriginal involvement and those obligations through the CVAs or IBAs are very work very well with the companies getting a hand up. So if you have a scoring system to decide on what contract is going to be given to one company or another, Aboriginal engagement now has been a significant part of that scoring.
Thank you. Eric?
Thanks, Eddie. First of all, I want to recognize the partnership that we do have in place with Missinaibi Cree and Chief Jason Gauthier, and it's an active, and you'll hear me using the word partnership. I don't even like to use the word agreement. And the reason that I like to call these partnerships is that essentially they need to be looked at as long-term relationships, and these agreements should not have really a term or an end date to them. Yes, the project eventually comes to an end, but the relationship is there forever, and we continue to support the communities well beyond the end of a project through the operations by participation in career fairs, education fairs, and one of the biggest things is about trying to promote the opportunities in mining for the youth of the community. That is so important, and I can't stress the importance of that. But so our approach really is to look at these as long-term partnerships. And if you think about us as a service provider, when a project starts, we're kind of the first ones on the scene. We're there to build the mine, and we provide the employment opportunities and the training opportunities. And it's a benefit to both the community and to the mine owner, because we can do local workforce training and have them engaged on the project, and then hand over that workforce to the mine owner. So it's a long-term benefit to both the community and to the mine owner. And probably another aspect that's really, really important is we talk about the economic development or the economic provisions and whatnot, but the point that I kind of wanted to make more directed towards the mine owners is that these partnerships should not add any cost to projects. I mean, our projects today struggle to get capital to advance these to execution and construction, and really these partnerships need to be true Aboriginal formed companies where they've got the majority interest, whether it's a 51-49 in the partnership, but they should not add any cost to the project.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Yes, it's definitely a partnership. It's a long-lasting commitment. It's understanding who you are, what you're going to be doing, how we're going to work together. It's exactly like any other partnership we form out with any other company. Chief Jason and I work well together, and it's all about our relationship, and we're able to expand upon that, and it's a long-lasting commitment. It's not something just for the short term.
So what well, obviously, what was said here in the panel, for sure that's a partnership. And of course, the joint ventures have progressed from just being paper joint ventures with a couple signatures on it and sharing a revenue now. Again, there's First Nation businesses and communities that are also looking and open to building capacity with their own communities, sharing the responsibility of the work that's involved in the joint ventures, working with mining companies, of obviously sharing those revenues, but being a true partner, as the other panelists have said. And again, the level of understanding and with joint ventures will vary from community to community, right? The capacity is there. Within Wabautek, what we're doing through the Center of Excellence, which we're going to be having a signing here shortly with Laurentian University, we're very excited about. It'll be a center at Laurentian University with the Wabautek initiative to support development of mineral development for Indigenous communities, and letting them know what the processes are, having some case studies, some references of where they can go and again learn about them, because everybody learns at a different rate, and there's successes and there's challenges out there, but through the Center of Excellence, and those are the kind of things we're wanting to support development for, again, with Indigenous communities, with governments, with post-secondary, and of course with the business sector as well.
Thank you, Stacey. Chief Jason, did you want to add something? Eric?
Sure. I just wanted to say that it's a difficult challenge for the industry to engage with the First Nations. I understand that. But there are people out there that will help that process happen. I think that reaching out to the First Nations at all kinds of different events and all kinds of different like these events, and the one that happens in Timmins also. And I think it's important to engage with the First Nations, and I think that start the conversation, and the opportunities will flow from there.
Thank you. Eric, did you want to add something?
Yeah, maybe just in closing, a couple points. Certainly, I've advocated for this in the past. I've spent some time. I'm part of the Ontario Mining Association. Obviously, they have an Indigenous subcommittee, and it would really be nice to see if the province and all the communities could come together and we could come up with some type of standard agreement template that could be used on every single resource development project between service providers and the communities. I think that would go a long way. I know it's a big challenge, And but I really think that if we could get to that point, it would make this part of the business so much easier for all the parties involved.
I'll just add that through the Center of Excellence for Indigenous Mineral Development, that's the kind of challenges that we want to be able to support.
Yeah.
And obviously working with key organizations like the OMA and I was going to call it SAMSSA, but the Mine Connect, sorry. Those are the type of activities we'll be supporting through the Center of Excellence.
Yeah. And just if I could go back to the training component, if people understand how these resource development projects, get to project execution or construction phase, obviously they have to go through significant efforts in a study phase, whether it's concept, pre-feas, feasibility, and I think our mine owners sometimes are missing the boat here, where they're not actually taking into consideration if their ultimate goal is to have local community trained, involved in the operations after the project is complete, then you need to have that consideration at the front end, very early, that it's going to be a part of the project, and it will have an impact. Obviously, there's learning curves, and it can affect the timeline of the schedule for the project. So that's a strong consideration that really needs to be given.
Absolutely.
Thanks to the panel. Any questions? Well, I guess they picked up everything. It's great. I'd like to thank the panelists for helping us out today. And next, I'd like to introduce Don Madahabi, which is a general manager of Wabitec Business Development Corporation. Come up, say a few words.
I'm truly honored to be here. My name is Dawn Madabi Leach, and I'm the General Manager of the Wabitec Business Development Corporation. But also, I'm here to help with educating all of you on a new initiative that started in Northern Ontario called the Centre of Excellence for Indigenous Minerals Development. The Centre of Excellence for Indigenous Minerals Development is a clearinghouse of information to assist in building Indigenous knowledge and capacity with respect to the minerals development industry. And it's also a center that will help the industry as well as government to look at leading practices and working with Indigenous people, and how to meaningfully engage our people in this industry. So I'm really excited today to be signing another agreement in regards to the Centre of Excellence. The Centre of Excellence is working with very closely with Laurentian University. That's where we're located. Our offices are located, and we'll be working very closely with the Goodman School of Mines and as well as Morarco. And I see Jennifer Abels here. She manages both entities. It takes a woman to manage these entities. I want to recognize that. So I'm really excited to be working alongside her in this initiative. I'm also very excited to introduce one of our key partners with the project is Rio Tinto, and we have with us today. I'd like to recognize Todd Milan, and the other members I'm not sure, but back here, thank you very much for being here today. We would really like for you to join in our photos after as we do the signing of the agreement. And but this center is going to be, I think, a real change agent in terms of providing knowledge and understanding of the industry and how important it is to everyday needs of people globally. We see this center being a global center because we know that there's always already a need expressed by our Indigenous brothers and sisters around the world on looking at leading practices. The center will be doing case studies on some of the leading practices as well as research, and which is why we're located at a post-secondary institution. And as we go forward, we're really excited to be learning those best practices and able to share them with the industry, with the governments, and with our own people especially, and looking at how those communities have worked with the industry to make it work and benefit the communities, and also to look at ways to promote sustainable development. I think that that's the most important thing going forward. And of course, I think we all share that wish, and so we're really honored that we have partners who share that vision about building that capacity, about sustainable development, and about partnerships and working together. Those are really important to us and very key. I'd also like to recognize here today we have the chair of the Wabatek Business Development Corporation, Martin Bayer. So if you could let people know, and we'd like to involve him as well in this ceremony, of course. And I'm really happy to be working alongside Stacy Kress, who is doing a lot of work with Wabatek in the implementation of an Indigenous mining strategy that was requested of us to do by the First Nation leaders in our area. They wanted to have a strategy on how to work in this industry, how to best engage in this industry. So we're really honored to be working and doing that for our communities. This is something that they want us to do, and we've been directed to do. So I want to also make that acknowledgement of our community leaders who have had the vision for this center of excellence. So I think I'd like to now introduce the president, Robert Haché of Laurentian University, and thank him also. He's the, I keep mentioning the third president of the university that I've worked with, and that I'm alumni of Laurentian University. And I wanted to thank him for really being proactive in helping us with the center and making sure some things take place. So we really appreciate the support we've been given. So I'd like to introduce you now.
Thank you, Don, for that kind introduction. I really look forward to continuing to work with Wabatek and the Center of Excellence. Good morning, everyone. Bienvenue tout le monde. Ani kwekwe wache. Welcome all, and what a great panel we've just heard organized by Mind Connect. It gives me a great pleasure to be here today. I'm very excited to be expressing Laurentian University's interest in partnering with Wabatek on this great initiative. And please allow me first as well to quickly recognize Martin Bayer, who's also a member of the Board of Governors of Laurentian University, as well as Rachel Pino, who's a director on the board of the Goodman School of Mines. Our ability to succeed in supporting the mining sector is fundamentally determined by the way our work serves our diverse communities. Truth and reconciliation is a fundamental aspect of this work, and ensuring that our focus is always with and in support of Indigenous partners and nations is of critical importance to the overall mandate of Laurentian University. I very much look forward to exploring this partnership with Wabatek and working to support Indigenous communities across the province. Don and Stacy at Wabatek have done an incredible work on this project. The degree and depth of consultation and the detail is of great importance. And so with that, I say thank you, merci, miigwech, and to all, great continuation of this conference. Thank you.